Thanks for the hyperbole there. First of all, who has a QR code on their phone, a QR code reader scanner on their phone? What was the last thing you used it for, Aaron? Supermarket. What did you, in what context, what did you do with it?
Look at the content of the outfit.
Okay. And what about you? What did you use it for?
Something that I saw on a poster to go to the website.
Yeah. So I'd seen them around, and I thought, especially at galleries, and I thought, oh, what a great idea. I wonder how I can use that, because I like technology. I'm not just for its own sake, but I look for new ways to engage students, that word again, engage, and to address some of the issues around delivering English language, basically, to international students. So I'll just give you a bit of background. Last year, I work in PAVE. I work in the Ellicos part of PAVE, which is international English language intensive courses for overseas students. And I also work delivering academic literacies unit in foundation and diploma, but always with international students. So late last year, I had 2 classes of Ellicos students, 18 students in one class, and also a Foundation Unilink combined class, delivering it in combined mode with 14 students. So all up, I had 32 students across a week to deal with. Now, I will focus on the Ellicos class because this is where I started using QR codes. So each Ellicos class has 2 teachers, a 3-day teacher and a 2-day teacher. In this instance, I was the 3-day teacher, and I was responsible for managing 3 assessment tasks. Because usually it's only 2 assessment tasks, but in this particular instance, I was responsible for 3. So they included writing folio tasks, first draft and rewrites, and feedback for individual seminars. And I'm actually really committed to quite detailed feedback because I think students put a lot of work into what they produce, and I think a well done or good job parental kind of feedback doesn't sort of match the amount of work that they put into the task. So most of my feedback sheets look like this. And one day I was really curious. I'm not very good I'm a slow typist too, so it's taking a bit of time. I was curious, how many words of feedback do I actually give my students a week or during the 5-week period? So I had 18 students, remember, in the Ellicos class. Each of them had to do 3 writing tasks across 5 weeks, so that's 54 writing tasks across a 5-week period. Also had 18 seminars, where each student gave a seminar, and I had to give feedback for that. So of approximately 250 words each. Plus I had, so that's about 18,000 words every 5 weeks. And I had the reading journal, which was also about 250 to 300 words each. So I was gobsmacked when I thought, oh my God, that's nearly 24,000 words I'm typing each 5-week block, and it's taking so much time, and I'm getting incredibly stressed about it all, and I just really can't handle it, and what do I do? So I thought there must be some other way. There must be some way I can limit the amount of work I'm doing here and the stress of getting it done in a timely manner and making sure my students understand it, grading the language, and so on and so forth. And then I thought, oh, I know what I could do. I could give audio feedback. So I know that you can add audio feedback to Turnitin, but I chose not to go that way because it wasn't portable. You had to actually be logged into a computer, for the student had to be logged into a computer to read it. I could give face-to-face feedback, which I think is really great, but remember I've got 18 students. So the problem there is that you've got the time factor. So if you had maybe 10 minutes face-to-face student conferencing, that's about 3 hours. Also, it's a problem with feedback, recording feedback or archiving it. It's spoken, so where's the record of it? Students could take notes, and I have encouraged that, but then that distances them from the immediacy of the feedback that you're giving them. And so it's very ephemeral. So this is where I thought, oh, I know what I can do. I can use those little black dotty things. So instead of the written, if you remember what the other one looked like, this is me freaking out again. So instead of that, what the students were then getting was this, with the audio embedded in the QR code, my audio. What I like about this is that it gives more nuanced feedback, so they can hear my voice. So instead of reading something like, I thought you did a really good job of introducing this topic, they hear, I thought you did a really good job of introducing this topic. So they actually hear my enthusiasm for what they'd done. It was great for record keeping, didn't take up much room. I could photocopy these feedback sheets for archival purposes. It was comprehensive. I could speak for as long as I wanted, really. I'd quite to keep it within 2.5 minutes because their concentration goes. And I love that nuanced feedback, that nuanced sort of feel. And also I like the fact that the students could share this with their parents or with other people, other stakeholders, or even their sponsors. We have a lot of sponsored students, by actually copying it or into an email. I ask the students always, are you happy with this sort of feedback, or would you prefer written? Usually in a class of 18, 2 want written, 1 wants both, and the rest are happy with audio. I never give both. You've got to choose. And so in the end, most of them actually opt for the audio. Don't pressure, no pressure. I'm happy to give written feedback as well. Their main feedback to me about that is that they like the fact that they can hear my voice, that it feels real to them. It has a natural feel to it. And you can laugh. It's much easier to laugh instead of, LOLing on your... It's not appropriate anyway for written feedback in an academic context. And it was great for giving feedback about pronunciation. So you didn't have to use the phonemic symbols. You could actually say, instead of saying a t or ud ending on past tense, you're adding an extra syllable. So you've got kissed instead of kissed. So you need to work on that. So they can hear that, and it's useful, and they can mimic. So I thought, wow, this is amazing. What amazing, Jim's just so clever. However, once I started using these, I realised lots of people are using them. And then I started doing some more research about how else I could use them, not just for feedback. So this is where I started thinking about resource-based sort of use. I think that using, beyond the audio feedback and record keeping and space saving and all of that, it's great for what we call jigsaw listening activities, and this is fantastic for supporting students with different mixed ability in a mixed ability classroom. So you might have someone listening to a 2-minute, or watching a 2-minute video, and someone else watching a more demanding video, and doing the same task in relation to those videos, but the actual materials are pitched at the level of the student. Also, we weren't constrained by the type of room that we had. You were talking about the rooms that you had. We could go outside. I'm not sure about your access to computer labs when you need them, but in our domain, so it's a real struggle because we're actually competing with you guys, higher ed, for rooms and space. And so sometimes you want to use something on the internet and you want students to use it individually. You don't just want to project it. You don't have access to computers. So this is a great way for them to have access to computers. We do have iPads as well, and I'm actually going to upload QR scanners on the iPads so that the students get a bigger screen instead of on their phone. We weren't allowed to use, it sounds like, don't do this, but we weren't allowed to use colour photocopiers. So if you're using materials where you want that colour to foreground information, if the colour is actually carrying information, like on a graph or something like that, we didn't have access to that. We'd have to just display the screen using data projector. So I love the fact that students could suddenly access things in colour, they could access audio, they could access video on a paper-based worksheet. Then I thought about this produsage model also of students actually producing things, videos or speech samples or even written work, because you can upload PDFs also into this, and to share that amongst the class or to use that as a basis for a lesson. You could use it for formative and diagnostic assessment. And most importantly for me at the moment is for remediation and extension. We do have a wide variety of skill levels in classes, in English language classes, and some students are racing ahead and are easily bored. They finish everything before other people do, and other people are really struggling. And I think this is a kind of private way of actually helping students who are struggling and without making them obvious to the other students. So for remediation and extension, I thought it was a good idea. What I like about these tools too is that they're free. Free is really good. I love free. And I've just given a sort of basic starter kit here for if you want to start exploring it for use in your context of the actual app that I use. The one I use is called Enigma, and I like it because it actually stores a history of what the students have looked at recently, and so that makes it much easier to go back to something that you've done before. The QR code generator, there's a free version and a paid version. The main difference is that the paid version creates dynamic QR codes, which means that you can change the information in it. And so if a link is changed in some way, this QR code, you can actually go into it and change it so you don't lose it. If it's a free one, you've got to start again. And Vocaroo is a great little tool, and what I like about this is that you can actually, instead of just recording stuff on your phone or on the computer, you can actually record directly into this tool, and you can generate the QR code at the same time. So it's a really, really quick thing, and it's great for students to use. So, while I work in the Aliquots and Pathways context, I think this has applications for other contexts as well. As I said, for me, it started off just a time-saving thing and using it for feedback, because I really, really think that feedback's important, and Edmund was talking about that. And it's really not that time-consuming. Teachers always say, oh, I don't have time to do that, but it's not that time-consuming. And the fact you can do it on your phone is really good, or using Vocaroo. And also, I'm a really messy writer, so if I'm assessing a seminar or a presentation and I'm making notes at the same time, no one can read that after I've finished. So then it takes me a long time to type it out because I'm a lousy typist, I'm 3 fingers. And so for me, it's much easier to grab that, you know, and to make a recording of it. And I can do that at home, sitting in my bed, whatever, in a relaxed atmosphere. So, as I said, the basic tools to start with, I'll just leave these here, and that's about it. It's not rocket science, it's not hugely revolutionary, but I think it's a great little tool, and I just love them. You can make them pretty too, and make them into shape, so it's got an aesthetic appeal. So, I'll just leave these here.
Julia, question. I probably know the answer to it, but I'll ask you anyway. Any of the students objects to this because they need to have something that is not necessary for education, like a phone and a smartphone?
Well, we've got iPads, so they can use that. Most students, I've never come across a student who hasn't had a phone, and you can actually use them with an Android, so, you know, then it's not exclusive, you know. I'm really big on inclusion as well, so I certainly wouldn't use a tool that I felt the students didn't. Is that what you meant? Yeah.
Obviously, you haven't come across any student who hasn't got a smartphone or
I've never come across a student who hasn't got a phone that can use apps, no, never. Have you?
Yes.
Well, yes, in Dharamsala, yes. I didn't even have a whiteboard. We had a stick in the dirt, but no, other than that, no.
Hi, Julie. Great presentation. Thanks
Thank
for that.
you.
As I understand it, the QR code doesn't actually store any information. It points to a URL or a website. Where's all that voice and the feedback stuff stored, or where are you housing that?
Good question. Yes, I thought it did. I thought, oh, it must be living in those little dots. How clever. I don't have a huge IT background. It's either on your computer and you've created a link to where it is on your computer, or it's on, like Vocaroo, it's actually sitting on the Vocaroo website. So there is an issue. It probably won't last for years, but I've gone back to a QR code that I created 3 years ago, and the information was still there. And I went back to one which I created with a different tool, not this one, not the QR stuff, and it had gone because I must have used a trial or something. We know you've got 15 days or something, and so that was gone. But I still had the audio file. I do keep the audio files. Yeah. So yeah. Like everything, as soon as you put a URL up there, you're exposing yourself to, you know, danger. The link's broken, doesn't work. Yeah, that's about it.
What's your next experiment with QR? What are you doing next year, do you think?
I'm actually wanting to work more on students using them for different purposes, and also I love web quests. I don't know if you've heard of web quests. So making QR codes which I maybe stick around the city or around the campus, so it's like a journey that the students go on, and the students creating something like that. I'd like to introduce some sort of assessment project incorporating this. It's a way of storing their WebQuest journey. So that's one thing. Yeah. Thank you. I can hear corks popping, so thank you very much for staying till the last session. It's a bummer being last on the program, but there you go. Thank you.